There are two ways to be in the world, two ways to be as a human being. One is as an individual sense of self with individual identity, and the other one is from the position of Dhamma. I think Ajahn Ganha has said that so many times over and over, live from the place of Dhamma and not from the sense of self. And then, of course, what does it really mean? We're so ensconced in the sense of self, we're so conditioned by the sense of self that virtually everything, the way we see things, the way we react to things, the way we pursue things, try to get rid of things, is all from that sense of self. Almost all of it. So, greed, hatred, and delusion, it's all about the sense of self. Personal identity. We want things, we want to get rid of things because we want to take care of this entity that I think is me. I want to protect what's mine. I want to get rid of what I don't like or what I don't want or what seems to be dragging us down or whatever. This is just normal. And it gets us into trouble, of course, when somebody says something and we take it personally. We get upset with them. When if we're looking at it from a place of Dhamma, we wouldn't be upset with them. We could understand a problem that's happening, but it wouldn't be personal. There wouldn't need to be any kind of anger or ill will or resentment or anything like that from the place of Dhamma. It's really hard to get our mind to take this in. And one of the reasons we look at the body and observe its parts and think of it as elements and think about what it's like when it dies and what happens to it after the body dies, and all of that is because that's one really, really concrete way of getting used to the idea that this thing we think of as me is not a self, is not lasting. So this is important, right? The Buddha said, if it's not lasting, if it changes, if it's anicca, then it can't be a self. It's not self. And because we are so used to everything changing, including, our bodies. I don't know what we thought when we were little and we saw ourselves in the mirror and then we look again and it's a whole, it's changed. But we're used to it. That's all we've ever known, right? And that change is normal. But clearly it's unreliable. Whatever changes, whatever comes and goes. So those similes that the Buddha used for the things that we assume to be ourselves, like the body being a lump of foam, the foam that collects on the water. And it looks like it's a thing, but then you get up close and it just disintegrates. So that's how the body is, right? So it's to reinforce that that's not self. And when we're really coming from the place of Dhamma fully, there's no worry about the body at all. And Ajahn Liam, they found out his heart was working at like 20% or something. And he's like, okay. I mean, there's no stress. There's no like, oh dear, nothing. It's just, okay. And his disciples are like, no, no, no. We want you to go in and get the procedure and stay with us for a while. Okay. Really. I mean, there's just no charge on it. I was visiting Ajahn Panyawado, and he had cancer, and he talked about it, but he's just there in this monastery that he's been at for 40 years in Thailand, and talking about the Dhamma, and yeah, it's all totally fine. But of course, that is not the normal human reaction. We are very invested in this body. And this is a very useful reflection to start to back away or replace the Dhamma perspective, the Dhamma reality. Replace the personal identity view with the Dhamma reality. And when we talk about ultimate reality, that's what it is. It's Dhamma. And there are all those other words for it. We can make up whatever kind of words we want. The words are also impermanent and just made up. Language is created by human beings. But there are these things that actually, reality is something we try to talk about because we have this facility of language. We can communicate to each other. It's pretty great that we can do that to try to help each other see. And even the first glimpse that is profound, that the body isn't self, really changes a person's perspective on life. And then we can look at our feelings. This is very important because feeling is what drives us, drives so much of our behavior. And we can start to catch moments when we really are coming from Dhamma and not self. And we have to observe that ourselves because we're the only ones who can really know if there's some self-identity motive behind giving, for example. When we really give without anything, wanting anything back, when we're really not in the mode of like, oh, then I can see myself as something, or other people can see me as something, or I can get something. When we're really not in that space at all, then we experience really coming from Dhamma. When we do our work as a gift, and it really is a gift, and we're not thinking about whether or not we're going to appear to be productive or intelligent or whatever, or not thinking about doing anything begrudgingly because that's what our manager requires and he's a jerk or whatever our thoughts are. If we really do it as a gift, I can give this gift. Then we come from Dhamma. And I think it's really interesting to reflect on those experiences and really notice how it feels. So even though feeling is impermanent, it constantly changes, it tells us a lot. And we can kind of feel it. Even this idea of knowing in the body whether something's real or not, true or not, whether it's Dhamma or it's not Dhamma. And the Buddha talks in different places, when he talks about insight, it's like you know it with your body. I think that's fascinating. Like you feel it in your gut. You know the feeling of giving without wanting anything in return. And you know the feeling of wanting something in return. And that's a very big help in our reflection, in our investigation, to understand when am I coming from Dhamma and when am I coming from sense of self. So when we get some of those experiences, when we know that feeling, we should start looking at everything we do in this light. Even our practice, so much of the time, I want to get good meditation, I want to get samadhi, I want to get jhana. Or, people will say, I've got jhana, I can, and it's like, it's so sense of selfish, sense, and we see that in our own mind, and we don't have to be upset with ourselves about it. It's like, oh, there's that personality perspective again. Okay, I don't have to buy into this. I'm going to step back from it and observe it. And we don't have to be, if we're upset with ourselves for coming from the sense of self, we're still coming from the sense of self. So can we just learn how to, the way I think of it is I take a step back and see it, you might say with Dhamma eyes, instead of, getting bought into it. When we hear things in the news, there's going to be reactions. When we hear things, there are reactions. What you're hearing right now, there's, look at how it lands. When we hear things in the news, it's likely to stir things up because that's the way they design the news. It's for stirring you up, winding you up. I like that phrase Ajahn Brahm talked about one time. He was, as a monk, there was some place he was teaching, I think, where it was right on the beach, right by the ocean. And there was some time in between something. He would regularly go out to the beach and maybe do some walking meditation or sit on the beach. And he sat on the beach and he was in meditation, and then he came out and there were two girls in bikinis, one on each side of him. And, he's like, I say, okay. And anyhow, he at one point when he was telling this story, I've heard him tell this story a few times, and he said, yeah, they were really trying to wind me up. Teenage girls. And, this is what the news does. It really wants to wind you up. But we can see it, we can listen, we can hear about what's happening. We're going to have reactions, but we don't have to buy into our reactions. We can observe them. This observing position is Dhamma. When we're able to observe, and there's a coolness in it. It's not with the heat of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my 401k, what's going to happen to my kids. How's this going to work for the people I care about? How's this working for people I don't even know? It can be very upsetting because so much goes against the grain of what we feel is wholesome and good. And this is, in general, it is wholesome and good, what we're looking for, what we're wishing for the world to be like, what we're hoping people who have power will do, and all of those things, right? But when we come to it from Dhamma, there's coolness, there's clarity, there's an understanding that there's all this greed, hatred, and delusion in play. We can have compassion, there's kindness, there's hopefully equanimity. But we're not embedded in this thing. It's not like, when we come from Dhamma, there's a space around it where we can see it for what it is. And then what is it that I'm not even going to go there. Like what that feels like, that's what we all have to experience ourselves. How does it feel when we come to these things? And I'm just pulling out examples, but for each of us, it's different things that really get us caught. Because we all have different circumstances and different lives and different conditioning to some degree. So really looking at how does it feel, and what is it like to evaluate what we're experiencing, reflect on it, not intellectually. It's not about the thinking mind. Thinking mind generally just goes around and around in its same old stuff that it knows. And it's kind of tiring and stressful. But the reflective mind that is open to taking in experience and observing it and allowing our the Dhamma really to speak to us through that observation, that is not tiring. Because you're just waiting. You feel I don't know, we could call it answers, insight, the insight into how to relate to what we're experiencing. So, as practitioners who are engaged in this kind of process, and all of, just as an aside, not, as a clause, put commas around this. This is the practice. This is what all of these enlightenment factors are for. The mindfulness is this is all based on mindfulness. We have no awareness without mindfulness. Without mindfulness, like Ajahn Chah said, a moment without mindfulness you're crazy. We're crazy when we're not mindful. Or we're like we're already dead if we're not mindful. So mindfulness is the basis for this ability to really see from the place of Dhamma. And then investigation is this process of seeing without judgment, without the thinking mind trying to figure it out. And of course, energy is needed. The happiness, the joy that comes from the practice is essential to lift us up, to be able to step back enough from the world. Because we find our comfort, our happiness, what keeps us going usually in worldly things, in the sensual experience in all this stuff that really is impermanent and constantly falling apart. But nonetheless, that's usually how we get our uplift. But if we can do it through the spiritual uplift, then we can really let go of the world. And so on with tranquility and samadhi and equanimity. It's all of these factors are for the purpose of our seeing the truth of the way things are, our living according to Dhamma, rather than being deluded and kind of scammed by the sense of self, identity, self-perspective. So as we step back, if you will, to observe, we can gather experience and develop our ability to be present with what happens and not react out of that self place. That's very helpful for our life, our interactions with other people, our perspective on our own body, mind. And as we gain more experience and we are able to reflect, investigate, what that is, getting a sense of what that is that's watching. We can start to trust it, because whenever we step back, it's there. But it's not so easy. It's very hard to see from the sense of self. Like this like we need to have a willingness to be so open and invested and committed to truth that we can notice even when there's this little bit of greed, hatred, or delusion in the way, causing static, keeping us holding on to views and opinions that we have about the way things work, and instead are really open to hearing, to seeing, to observing, to feeling what it is that is really Dhamma. And developing that trust in what's observing. And it's through the deeper, insights, I guess we could say, the deeper insights, that we start to understand the big picture of how things work. What happens after the body dies? What is it that continues? And how does that continue? Is it continuing? It's more like it's just what's always been there. That doesn't change. I mean, in terms of nibbana. The other kind of continuing is the continuing of the karma that's been made, the continuing of the desire to exist. That's the other track. Now, that's the track, because things run on a track. Nibbana is like, there's no track, there's no change. It's hard to imagine from the perspective of the sense of self that there are things that don't change, or there's that which doesn't change. And it still comes back to those two lines. Sabbe sankhara anicca, sabbe dhamma anatta. All sankharas are impermanent. When you start, the word sankhara there is like all conditioned things, all things of the world, all things that we on a conventional level speak of as ourselves or belonging to us. And then if we look at sankharas from the sense of self, then we can want to dismiss them or dislike them or be fed up with ourselves for not understanding more or something. And then we need to look at that, take that in. Okay, this is just another layer of selfing that I can observe, and it's okay. All of what we've been doing, at some level, it's okay. First of all, it's past. And right now, we have choices in the present moment to see if we can let go of our preconceived ideas, of our conditioning, enough to be able to see in a completely new way from Dhamma. And okay, maybe it's not a completely new way, because you do have experiences of giving without wanting anything back. Moments when sometimes people will call it being in the flow. Just really being present and not about me and mine at all. So that's what we begin to put our attention on and trust. And then whenever things are happening, whatever there is that's triggering, whatever there is that we're seeing in our meditation or in our life, we start to develop this pattern, this habit of stepping back and observing. And with this awareness, conscious awareness, pure awareness, we know this situation from the perspective of Dhamma. Last night, I ran out of words. You were here, you saw it happen. I don't think I've ever had that happen before. It was so weird. Yeah. That's all I have to say. It's like, whoops, who is this? And I mean, then the mind and the conversation afterwards with Ayya Chittananda is like, she's been referring to this schedule we've been keeping for the last, couple months, and we'll continue on for another month or so as a murder-suicide. Yeah. And so just, it was just really interesting to see the mind completely go, I'm done. Okay, go to bed. Time to sleep. Time to rest. Nothing else we can do about this. But it was interesting. And it's like the sense of self gets worried. And Ajahn Sumedho talks about how this the sense of self still has its reactions. But it's okay because you can observe all that with Dhamma. So we don't have to try to kill off the sense of self, or I'm not going to be this way or that way. That's still coming from the sense of self.